The Westbrook Academy's 20-year reunion was exactly as pretentious as I expected. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway of the Grand Plaza Hotel, each one more expensive than the last. I deliberately parked my 10-year-old Toyota Camry between my cousin Sophia's Ferrari and my cousin Alexander's Bentley. The valet looked at my car with barely concealed disdain. Exactly the reaction I wanted. What no one knew was that I'd driven here from my private helipad, leaving my collection of supercars in the garage of my penthouse. Sometimes the best power play is letting people underestimate you. Oh my God, Evelyn still drives that thing? I heard Sophia's voice carry across the parking lot. She stood with Alexander and our other cousin Victoria, all three of them looking like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. I straightened my simple black dress, a custom Chanel piece that cost more than their cars combined, though it looked deliberately understated. The diamond studs in my ears were small, nothing like the flashy jewelry my cousins wore. The watching eyes of my former classmates missed the subtle tells of true wealth, seeing only what they expected to see, their favorite target still failing to measure up. "Evie, darling." Sophia air-kissed in my direction, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Still working at that little finance company?" I suppressed a smile. That little finance company was Eclipse Global, one of the largest private equity firms in the world. I'd built it from scratch while my cousins were busy spending their trust funds and running their parents' companies into the ground. "Still consulting," I replied quietly, using the cover story I'd maintained for years. Let them think I was a minor financial advisor. It made what was coming next so much sweeter. "You should talk to Alexander," Victoria chimed in, adjusting her obviously new engagement ring. "His company's looking for someone to manage their employee retirement accounts. That's what you do, right? Small-scale investments." Alexander smirked, straightening his custom suit. "We could probably find something entry-level. Family helps family, after all." If only they knew that Eclipse Global had been systematically acquiring shares in their companies through various shell corporations over the past 5 years. By tomorrow morning, I would own controlling interest in all 3 of their family businesses. "That's very kind," I murmured, checking my phone discreetly. The message from my assistant confirmed everything was in place. Merger documents prepared. Board members briefed. Press release ready for tomorrow. "Still using that old phone?" Sophia laughed, flashing her latest iPhone. "Some things never change, do they?" "Speaking of change," Alexander added, "did you hear about our latest expansion? We're merging 3 family companies into one conglomerate. Biggest deal of the year." I took a sip of champagne to hide my smile. They had no idea that their merger was actually a carefully orchestrated takeover. Their companies were drowning in debt that Eclipse Global had been quietly purchasing through offshore entities. "How exciting," I said softly, remembering all the family gatherings where they'd mocked my career choices. "Tell me more about this merger." Victoria preened. "It's quite complex. Business things you wouldn't understand. But essentially, we're combining our resources to become one of the largest corporations in the region. Of course, we'll need to restructure some things," Alexander added, his confidence wavering slightly. "Streamline operations." I knew what streamline meant. They were planning to lay off thousands of employees to cover their mounting losses. What they didn't know was that I'd already prepared positions for every worker they planned to cut, in companies I controlled. "Still living in that tiny apartment downtown?" Sophia changed the subject, always ready to highlight what she saw as my failures. "You know, if you joined the family business like we suggested, you could afford something better by now." I thought about my penthouse overlooking Central Park, my villa in the south of France, and the private island I'd bought last month. "The apartment suits me," I replied simply. The reunion moved into the hotel's grand ballroom, a sea of designer clothes and practiced smiles. My cousins held court at their table, broadcasting their success to anyone who would listen. I sat quietly at my assigned table, near the kitchen of course, and waited. My phone buzzed again. "Final contracts signed. Legal team confirms everything is ready. Should we proceed with the announcement?" I looked across the room at my cousins, remembering every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time they'd made sure I knew I wasn't good enough for their elite circle. "Not yet," I typed back. "Wait for my signal." Sometimes revenge isn't about immediate gratification. It's about waiting for the perfect moment to show people exactly who they've been underestimating. And that moment was coming very soon. The reunion dinner progressed exactly as I'd anticipated. My cousins dominated the conversation, their voices carrying across the ballroom as they detailed their latest successes to an increasingly bored audience. "The merger will revolutionize the industry," Alexander proclaimed, standing to give an impromptu speech. "Harrison Sterling Campbell Enterprises will be unprecedented in scale." I checked my watch discreetly. In exactly 12 hours, their precious merger would be revealed as a hostile takeover by Eclipse Global. But for now I sat quietly, letting them bask in their imagined triumph. "Of course," Sophia added loudly, glancing my way, "some people prefer to stay small. Play it safe. Right, Evelyn?" The table tittered with polite laughter. I took another sip of wine, a $10,000 bottle I'd had specially delivered, though I let them think it was the hotel's house selection. "Speaking of playing it safe," Victoria chimed in, "still driving that Camry, Evie? You know, Alexander's dealership could get you a nice lease. Something more appropriate for a Harrison. If only they knew about my garage full of limited edition supercars, or the private jet I'd flown in on this morning. But I'd learned long ago that true power doesn't need to announce itself." My phone vibrated. "Miss Harrison, urgent matter requiring attention. The boards are assembled for emergency meetings." "Excuse me," I said softly, standing up. "I need to take this call." "Probably a client's retirement account," Alexander stage whispered. "Small potatoes." I stepped into the elegant hallway, noting how my cousin's eyes followed me with barely concealed amusement. "Perfect. Put me through to all 3 boards," I instructed my assistant. "Speakerphone." Walking back into the ballroom, I positioned myself near my cousin's table. Right on cue, the hotel's giant screens, supposedly showing a slideshow of school memories, flickered to life with a different display: Eclipse Global's logo. "What's happening?" Sophia demanded, her perfect composure cracking slightly. "Ladies and gentlemen," my assistant's voice came clearly through my phone's speaker, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "The documents are ready for Eclipse Global's acquisition of Harrison Industries, Sterling Corporation and Campbell Enterprises. Ms. Harrison, shall we proceed with the announcements?" The silence that fell over our section of the ballroom was absolute. "Ms. Harrison?" Alexander laughed nervously. "There must be some mistake." I smiled, finally letting my carefully maintained facade drop. "No mistake, cousin. Eclipse Global has acquired controlling interest in all 3 companies. The merger you've been planning? It's happening, just not the way you thought." Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "But, you're just a financial advisor." "Actually," I replied, pulling up documents on my phone, "I'm the founder and CEO of Eclipse Global. While you were all busy mocking my small career, I was building one of the largest private equity firms in the world." "Impossible," Sophia whispered. "We would have known." "Would you?" I raised an eyebrow. "When was the last time any of you actually looked at who was buying your company shares? Who was purchasing your debt? Who was quietly acquiring every piece of leverage needed to take control?" The screens now displayed real-time stock tickers, showing the after-hours trading of their company's shares. All 3 stocks were plummeting as news of the takeover leaked to major investors. "The papers are ready," my assistant's voice reminded us. "Shall I proceed with the press release?" "You can't do this." Alexander stood up, his face flushed. "We're family." "Family." I laughed softly. "Like when you made me sit at the children's table at every holiday. When you told potential clients not to work with me because I was a small-time advisor. When you excluded me from family business meetings because I wouldn't understand complex dealings." Other reunion attendees were gathering now, phones out, recording the moment when the cousins who dominated every school event were finally facing someone more powerful than themselves. "What happens now?" Victoria asked, her voice barely a whisper. I smiled, thinking about the restructuring plans I'd prepared, plans that would strip them of their executive titles and inherited authority. "Now," I replied. "Now we discuss your performance reviews." The aftermath of my revelation unfolded like a perfectly choreographed symphony of chaos. The reunion's elegant ballroom transformed into ground zero of a corporate earthquake, with my cousins at its epicenter. I've prepared detailed assessments of your leadership, I continued, motioning to my assistant who had now entered the ballroom with 3 thick folders. Shall we discuss them here, or would you prefer somewhere more private? You can't just evaluate us, Sophia sputtered, her designer mascara starting to run. We're company presidents. I corrected, opening the first folder. Let's start with Harrison Industries under Alexander's leadership. Profits down 40% in 3 years. 2 failed expansions. And an interesting pattern of personal expenses charged to company accounts. Alexander's face went from red to white. Those expenses were approved by the board. A board that now reports to me, I reminded him. Just like you will, assuming you keep your position. Though given these numbers, that's not likely. Victoria tried to regain control of the situation. Surely we can work something out. We're family after all. Family. I projected a series of text messages onto the screens. Their private conversations mocking my career, my car, my life. Like these family discussions about my pathetic consulting work? The ballroom had gone silent, every former classmate watching the downfall of the elite cousins who'd lorded their success over everyone for decades. Sterling Corporation under Sophia's leadership, I continued, opening the second folder. 3 harassment lawsuits quietly settled. A failed merger that cost shareholders millions. And an interesting series of offshore accounts that our forensic accountants are very eager to examine. Sophia collapsed into her chair, her perfect poise finally breaking. Those accounts were Father's idea. And Campbell Enterprises, I turned to Victoria, has lost market share every quarter since you took over. Your only profitable division is one you acquired from a company that, coincidentally, was secretly owned by Eclipse Global. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from board members, lawyers, and business reporters. The story was leaking, and tomorrow's headlines would shake the financial world. But your little consulting business. Alexander tried one last time. Was a cover, I explained patiently. Every client you mocked me for working with? CEOs and board members of companies I was acquiring. Every small investment I managed? Strategic purchases of your company shares. While you were broadcasting your success, I was quietly building an empire. I pulled up Eclipse Global's true organizational chart on the screens. Hundreds of companies, billions in assets, operations in 40 countries. My cousins stared at the display, finally seeing the scale of what I'd built while they were underestimating me. Your new contracts are in these folders, I continued, distributing more documents. You'll be retaining positions within your company's junior positions where you can learn how real business works. Your salaries will be adjusted to reflect your actual qualifications rather than your family names. Junior positions? Victoria gasped. But where will we live? Our homes, our cars. Were purchased with company funds, I finished. Funds that now belong to Eclipse Global. Don't worry, I've arranged for modest apartments near your new offices. The commute in your Camrys shouldn't be too long. Camrys? Sophia looked like she might faint. Like your old car? I smiled, pulling out my other set of car keys. Oh, this? My real car's in the private garage upstairs. The Bugatti Chiron seemed a bit flashy for a reunion. The next hour was a blur of activity. Lawyers arrived with more documents. Security teams began changing access codes and collecting company devices. My cousins watched helplessly as their empires crumbled around them. One more thing, I added, pulling up another document. The family estate. They froze. The 100-acre Harrison estate had been their symbol of superiority, the place where they'd hosted lavish parties and made sure I knew I wasn't good enough to attend. I bought it last month, I informed them. I'm turning it into a business incubator for entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. People with talent and drive who just need someone to believe in them. Where will we live? Alexander whispered. Eclipse Global owns several apartment complexes, I replied. Standard units, nothing fancy. Your new salaries should cover the rent, though you might need to budget carefully. As the reality of their situation sank in, my cousins' reactions ranged from tears to threats to desperate bargaining. But I had one final revelation to share. The annual family Christmas gathering, I announced. It will continue as tradition, at my estate. Business attire required, of course. And yes, I smiled, Everyone will sit at the main table. No more children's section. Later that night, after the lawyers had gone and my cousins had departed in their soon-to-be repossessed cars, I stood in my private penthouse suite at the hotel, looking out over the city. My phone buzzed with messages. Alexander, please, we can work something out. Sophia, you can't do this to family. Victoria, what about our reputations? I thought about all the family gatherings where they'd made sure I knew my place. All the reunions where they'd flaunted their inherited success. All the times they'd told me I'd never understand real business. The next morning's headlines would tell a different story. Eclipse Global CEO reveals identity in spectacular triple takeover. Hidden billionaire. How Evelyn Harrison built an empire in secret. Family drama. The quiet cousin who bought it all. My assistant entered with the final reports. All security changes implemented. Board meetings scheduled for tomorrow. And your cousin's new employee orientations are set for Monday. Perfect, I replied, thinking about their first day as regular employees. No corner offices, no executive privileges, no special treatment. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just taking control. It's teaching people the true meaning of earning their success. 1 week later, I sat in my real office. The top floor of Eclipse Global's headquarters. The view of Manhattan stretched out before me, my company's logo prominently displayed on several buildings that had once borne my cousins' names. Their first performance reviews sat on my desk. All three were struggling to adjust to actually working for a living, to being held accountable for their actions, to understanding what real business success looked like. My phone buzzed with a message from the family group chat. Alexander, about the Christmas gathering. Sophia, can we discuss dress code? Victoria, will there be assigned seating? I smiled, remembering all the times they'd excluded me from family events, all the times they'd made sure I knew I wasn't good enough for their circle. Yes, I replied. Dress code is business professional. Seating will be based on quarterly performance metrics. And please arrive in your company-provided vehicles.